The movie has a major identity crisis.
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
Disney's live-action Snow White has finally arrived in theaters, and oh boy, the response has been anything but magical. What was supposed to be a triumphant reimagining of the 1937 classic has instead sparked heated debate among fans, critics, and casual moviegoers alike. With a reported $250 million budget and years of anticipation, how did this fairy tale adaptation end up as one of Disney's most controversial releases? Let's dive into what went wrong, why audiences are divided, and what this means for Disney's future remake plans.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
The Snow White version is woke and feminist and progressive.
Let's talk numbers, because they tell quite a story. Disney was banking on a massive $150 million opening weekend, riding on nostalgia and star power. Instead, they pulled in just $43 million domestically, a staggering disappointment for a tentpole release with this kind of budget behind it. International numbers haven't saved it either, with a worldwide total that's nowhere near breaking even when you factor in marketing costs.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution.
Theater owners reported half-empty screenings during what should have been a packed family weekend. The merchandise from dolls to clothing isn't moving off shelves either. Disney's stock actually dipped following the premiere weekend, which speaks volumes about investor confidence. Industry insiders are whispering that Disney executives are in full crisis mode, with some speculating this might affect their entire remake strategy moving forward.
Rachel Zegler, she's an
At the center of this storm is lead actress Rachel Zegler, whose casting sparked debate from day one. While she unquestionably has vocal talent, as demonstrated in West Side Story, her comments during the press tour created significant backlash. In multiple interviews dating back to 2022, Zegler made statements that many fans interpreted as dismissive of the original film, describing it as outdated, and suggesting the remake would fix problems with the 1937 version.
Or what?
They're leaning into woke. Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
Then came the social media controversy. Ziegler's polarizing political posts alienated a portion of the potential audience before the film even premiered. When she attempted to apologize, many viewed it as insincere damage control. The hashtag boycott Snow White gained traction online, with commenters explicitly citing Ziegler's statements, not the film itself, as their reason for skipping the movie.
If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Leave it the alone.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
This raises interesting questions about star power versus star liability in the age of social media. While studios once controlled their stars' public images carefully, today's actors have direct lines to audiences through platforms where controversial statements can instantly reach millions. Disney's marketing team found themselves in the awkward position of trying to promote a film while its star was generating headlines for reasons unrelated to the movie's actual content.
Of course, like with everything on the left these days, they just take it too far. It just doesn't make any sense.
It makes a little bit more sense.
You can gaslight people so easily.
Yes.
Disney's creative decisions with this remake have been divisive, to say the least. The original Snow White was a simple fairy tale about a kind princess, 7 quirky dwarfs, and a dashing prince who saves the day. The 2025 version takes dramatic departures from this formula, reworking major plot elements and character motivations.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
Who wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? The outrage.
The prince's role has been significantly reduced, changing from the heroic figure of the original to what several critics have described as barely a supporting character. The evil queen's motivation has shifted away from the straightforward jealousy over Snow White's beauty to a more complex power struggle. These changes might have worked if executed well, but many viewers found them at odds with the spirit of the source material.
So the two stars hate each other.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Perhaps most controversial was the handling of the 7 dwarfs. After actor Peter Dinklage criticized the potential stereotyping of little people in 2022, Disney announced they would take a different approach. What followed was apparently multiple iterations during production, first considering actual little person actors, then shifting to magical CGI creatures, and finally landing on a diverse group that barely resembles the iconic characters fans remember. The execution left many viewers confused rather than enchanted.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse. So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
For a Disney musical adaptation, the songs are surprisingly forgettable, a critical failure for a Snow White remake. The original 1937 film gave us timeless classics like Hey Ho and Someday My Prince Will Come. The new soundtrack features original compositions that social media users and critics alike have lambasted as generic and thematically disconnected from the story.
Snow White gets her name, not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know. She gets her name from surviving a snowstorm.
One new song, Echo, has become particularly notorious online for its vague lyrics and heavy-handed messaging. Another track, Mirror's Lie, drags on without the melodic catchiness Disney songs are known for. Even with talented vocalists, these songs simply don't resonate with audiences accustomed to Disney's usually high musical standards.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button. I don't need your business. Thanks.
The musical direction feels uncertain, not traditional enough to satisfy purists, not innovative enough to impress newcomers. This middle ground approach ultimately satisfies no one, leading to a soundtrack that's unlikely to have the cultural staying power of other Disney remakes like 2017's Beauty and the Beast.
If you trusted a first reaction by anybody in the media, please go look at the list of names of people who hyped this up as a good movie and make sure you never take their opinions seriously ever again.
Perhaps the most damaging aspect of the remake is its tonal inconsistency. Disney seems caught between honoring the fairy tale source material and updating it for modern sensibilities. The result is a film that feels neither authentic to the original nor confident in its new vision.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
Many families reported feeling blindsided by the film's messaging, which sometimes comes across as lecturing rather than entertaining. Snow White's character has been reimagined as more assertive and independent, which could have been a positive evolution if executed with nuance. Instead, the transformation feels forced and unearned within the narrative.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension: racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
There's a delicate balance to modernizing classic stories, and according to most critics, Snow White missed that mark. The magic and wonder that made the original special gets lost in translation, replaced by sequences that often feel like they belong in a different movie altogether. This tonal whiplash, swinging between fairy tale whimsy and contemporary commentary, makes for a disjointed viewing experience.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
The audience response has been fascinatingly polarized. The film currently sits at a dismal audience score on review aggregator sites with thousands of negative user reviews. Social media tells a similar story, with the hashtag #SnowWhiteFail trending during opening weekend.
So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
And then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far, but it wasn't sincere.
Parents expressed particular disappointment, with many reporting their children were simply bored or confused by this new version. "My daughter wanted songs and magic, not speeches," wrote one parent on X. Another complained, "This isn't the Snow White I grew up with and wanted to share with my kids."
She's not going to be safe with a prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Oh my God.
Yet the film does have its defenders. Some viewers appreciate the attempts to modernize the story and give Snow White more agency. Certain critics have praised the visual effects and costume design, even while criticizing other aspects of the production. This split reaction highlights the challenge Disney faces with these remakes. Balancing nostalgia with innovation is incredibly difficult, especially with beloved classics.
Prince Charming in the traditional fairy tale and in the 1937 movie has been replaced by a common...
Disney has built much of its recent strategy around live-action remakes of animated classics. From Cinderella to The Lion King, these films have generally been reliable moneymakers, even when critically divisive. Snow White's commercial struggle signals potential trouble for this approach.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
Industry analysts are already speculating about what this means for Disney's upcoming slate of remakes. Will they play it safer? Will they reconsider how much they're willing to change from the source material? Or will they double down, attributing Snow White's issues to specific factors rather rather than the remake strategy itself.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level? What does that mean?
The consequences extend beyond Disney's walls. Other studios with similar remake plans are undoubtedly watching closely, recognizing that audience goodwill toward nostalgia bait has limits. Some insiders suggest this might mark a turning point in Hollywood's remake frenzy, forcing studios to be more thoughtful about which properties they revisit and how they approach them.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime, and let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely atrocious.
The social media reaction to Snow White highlights how the discourse around films has changed in the digital age. Rather than being shaped primarily by professional critics, the conversation is increasingly driven by audience members with platforms of their own.
There's no life lesson to be had here, and instead it gets replaced with something far more sinister. They make a revisionist Marxist call to arms, where it is Disney's closest film to paraphrasing the Communist Manifesto, and it does.
Snow White is the fairest of them all because she has these communist sensibilities to share all resources with the farmers that till the land, and she got those sensibilities from her mother and her father.
TikTok videos breaking down the film's perceived failures have garnered millions of views. YouTube reaction videos and analysis have sometimes reached larger audiences than the official marketing materials. This grassroots critique has created a narrative around the film that Disney's PR machine has struggled to counter.
Now you wash the dishes, you tidy up the room, you clean those cobwebs, and he'll use the broom. Whistle while you work, and cheerfully together we can tidy up the place.
In the original Snow White, she cleans the cottage after woodland animals take her there. When she learns the 7 dwarves live there, she offers to cook and clean the place for them as a sign of her gratitude. But in this one, she breaks in and then forces the dwarves to clean for her. So clearly the Barbie screenwriter they hired to write this film thinks that this is a clever kind of role reversal. Funny that making a feminist version of a character always means, in practice, just turning her into an unpleasant, unlikable nag.
The modern empowered Snow White won't even allow domestic labor carried out by herself. Instead, she orders the dwarves to tidy up themselves, even when they've had a hard day down the mine.
It's their house.
But it's so obvious now because of the blight of intersectionality that's spread throughout our entire society that we can't have a woman holding a broom. Not that Rachel Zegler would know what to do with a broom other than fly on.
Even more revealing is how quickly the conversation shifted from discussing the film itself to using it as a proxy for broader cultural debates. What started as criticism of a movie rapidly transformed into arguments about Hollywood's creative choices, political leanings, and approach to remaking classics. The film became less a piece of entertainment and more a cultural lightning rod.
They should have just dropped it like every other steaming pile of dog shit they put on Disney+.
So what happens next? For Disney, this is a moment of reckoning. Their next moves will reveal whether they view Snow White as an anomaly or a warning sign. Early reports suggest some planned remakes might be reconsidered or approached differently in light of this experience.
And then they couldn't put dwarfs finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive. You'd think the most progressive thing would be get people jobs, and dwarfs want to work. That many scripts that come down the pike.
No, only 7 of them.
That has, and there's 7 dwarf jobs here. But because I think it was Peter Dinklage said this is, this is not right to...
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarfs. Okay,
but what do they call them?
Why would they get rid of the dwarves, though?
Magical creatures.
But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it.
The 7 dwarfs of Snow White have, of course, all just disappeared, and now they're the 7 dysfunctional men, I assume.
I mean, I guess, what are we going to have? Like a lesbian, a trans person, someone in a wheelchair, someone of color? Like, I don't understand. Why weren't the dwarfs enough? But apparently they were too offensive because the most famous dwarf of all, Peter Dinklage, said something negative about it back in 2022, thus ruining the biggest acting roles the dwarfs had ever seen since the creation of Willy Wonka's Oompa Loompas back in the 1970s.
Argument should have been from Peter Dinklage. There's power of being on TV. There's power of television. And to put 7 people with dwarfism on camera in a major Disney movie, there's still power there. If the story is offensive, change the story. Don't change the characters.
They couldn't have dwarves. Do you guys remember?
Yeah,
that?
because Peter Dinklage and all them were talking crap.
So originally they
Do you have
took
a picture of what the dwarves were supposed to look like?
I can find it, but it was an array. It was the DEI of
DEI
dwarves.
dwarves.
Yep. Well, they had to reshoot the film and use CGI dwarves. There
So
you go.
those guys didn't make it.
No.
That guy's 6'2".
That's Sleepy, that's Drunky, that's Cokehead. You're joking.
They look like Santa's helpers.
And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho.
For Zegler, industry watchers speculate this could impact future casting decisions, though her undeniable talent means her career is far from over. The question is whether studios will be more cautious about how stars present themselves during promotional cycles, potentially adding clauses to contracts about social media behavior.
By the way, is not a good actress, never should have been cast for this role. I mean, you could just look at her, you say, that's not Snow White. I mean, come on.
Just in, an enormous cultural failure, Disney's Snow White, which cost $250 million, raked in a miserable $43 million during its premiere, and that's from the AP. Imagine if you guys just made entertainment sake for the sake of entertaining.
For audiences, this marks an interesting moment in the evolution of how we consume and respond to entertainment. The line between critiquing art and engaging in cultural warfare continues to blur, making it increasingly difficult to separate a film's actual quality from the controversy surrounding it. Disney's Snow White remake will likely be remembered not for what it was, but for what it represented, a flashpoint in ongoing debates about how we reimagine classics for new generations. Its troubled production, controversial casting, and divisive creative choices offer a case study in the challenges of balancing tradition with innovation. What do you think about the Snow White controversy? Was Disney right to reimagine the classic, or should they have stayed closer to the beloved original? Are you planning to see it despite the backlash, or has the controversy turned you away? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's biggest stories.